Like Guy Fieri? All right, cool. So Rails new coffee shop. I should have spelled it the fancy way. SHOPPE, you know? I messed up. You guys want to do that?
Yeah, you want to go
Yeah, let's just go hard. So here, ready? rm-rf. Be really careful with this command. It's like I'm gonna remove recursively, and I'm gonna force it, and I'm not gonna check. There's no like, are you sure you want to do this? Because if you accidentally put in like the wrong thing, like you put in like dot, it's gonna just wipe that folder. So if you do it at root, you just like bricked your computer. Your computer's like, you want me to delete everything, including me? Okay, great, bloop, and it'll just like go away. Great. So Rails new coffee shop. Oh yeah, that's it right there. That's the stuff. I think newer versions of Bash prevent you from doing rm-r. I'm not even going to type it because if I accidentally hit enter, I'll have to borrow someone's computer for the lecture, and that's not cool. So can I just immediately start writing Rails in here? Okay, cool. I say that because it's like a lot of people have like walked up to me like, none of my Rails command works. I'm like, can you ls for me? And they're like still in the parent folder. Cool. All right, hold on. Before we get started. So, all right. So now we are in here. Boop, boop, boop. And we just got to make our models, right? And we got to make our controllers and our migrations and the views. So what should we use? What generator? Resource, right? Don't worry, we're going to get to models and controllers next week again. So everything is not just resource. Just currently, because we need to build everything, resource is the best, right? And what do we say we're going to do? Coffee shop? Right? So what's the model here? We're just going to have one model, so we'll just have everything. So like, just coffee then? Is coffee cool? Cafe. Rails G resource coffee. Just kidding. So remember, when we do this, I'm just going to clear this so it's at the top. Oops. No. Mine later. We're talking about the model, so it should be capitalized. Right? And then what are the attributes of this model? Probably the name of the coffee. Do I need to put string in here? I can if I want to. What else? Price. And that is, what else? Huh? The thing about type is like a reserved keyword within the database. So if I put type, it will run, and the migration will run. But anytime I try to like add type to it, it'll break on me. So just so you know, if you wind up seeing that error. Yes, sir. Okay, so calf or Caffey. Cool. Boolean. I like saying that word. Okay. You know, try to get me with kids. Nice try. Size could be tricky. Not falling for that one. Yeah. Unless we want to go like Italian, you know, like venti. Coffee's already used in your application. Oh, right. Coffee shop. So I'm going to put, we'll put a cafe in here. Cafe, because we're European. And just get a cafe. Cool? Cool. Man, what was I saying about?
What was already used?
Coffee. Coffee's already used in the application because when you build coffee shop, right, the project name will take in like inherent things within the application. So you can't always name your application the same as like your controllers and your models. Cool? All right, let's see here. I got my Atom open, and let's start building some stuff. Okay, all right, cool. So what should we build first? The models, the views, the database. What should we do? Is this cool? Is this good? Oh man.
I just did the same thing. No, I didn't think that that's the plural.
Let's check. Let's find out. So just go in there. I'll take 2 caves. How big you want those? Vacuous, please. This is perfect, right? Rails will do wonky stuff for you. Man, it will do really wonky stuff. Do you just want to continue down caves? Yeah, let's go spelunking. Except this time it's like a coffee shop. You feel free to use your buzzers. Does everyone understand what just happened and why it's caves? I like this. I like this. It's obnoxious. Great. Back to Adam. I'm sorry, just kidding. Probably want to migrate at this point, right? So, because we don't need to add or change anything in the migrations, like I did last time where I had to add the foreign key. This time the migrations seem to be perfectly fine, so we can just go ahead and migrate. Great.
What is copy, by the way? Like, there's something in there called copy that we don't use, so we have a case on copy.
Yeah, coffee script. Yeah. So if you do Command-Shift-F, it will search your entire project repository, as opposed to just Command-F, which is going to search just that one file. Right? Sweet. Great. Caves controller. That is not at all confusing. All right. Sweet. So we know the deal here, right? All right. Just gonna start flying through. Cool. Right. Index. We have our show. We have our new. We have our create. We have our edit. We have our update, and we have our destroy. Almost. Does it? Who knows the answer?
No.
Okay.
The reason why is because the routes automatically pointed to the correct route that's going.
That is exactly correct, right? If we go... Wish I had a buzzer. There it is. Thank you. That was clutch. So let's check it out, right? Let's go to localhost 3000 / Rails info routes, which will break because I didn't start the server. And then if I check my routes, remember, this is what's happening ultimately in the background, right? The reason we had to do that new above the show in Sinatra is because I was hard coding those routes, right? Where I was doing in the show /cave/ID, right? Versus like the new, or what was it? Yeah, the new, which is /cave/new. So here in my routes, right, /new comes before ID, but really it's just pointing to this new controller action, right? Being in the caves controller and the new method. So the routes is really kind of handling everything. But that being said, I have to be careful inside my routes. I just Command T, searching for it. That without resources, right, if I were to like comment this out and then hard code the get to, it's a terrible user experience, /caves/ID, and then under that I did new, right? There could be some issues with that if I'm hard coding my custom routes. So in here is where I would want to do this, right? But with resources, it takes care of that for you. Yeah? Awesome. Okay, great. So I have my migrations, right? Everything works. I can check the schema. And back to my controller, right? So we can just start building this out, right? If you really want to get fancy, even before this, we already know we're doing what? Burr4 action. And we're just gonna what? Find the cave. We have to go in. We have to go in hard. Find cave, right? Only for which ones? Okay, can't spell like Rails. Which ones? Show. Edit. Is it update?
New.
Is it new?
I don't know.
Right. Think about it, right? Only the ones where we actually have to find this coffee will I actually need to call this, right? Index doesn't need it. New doesn't need it because it needs something else, right? Which is the blank object. Yes.
Is it basically the same thing as doing like except index and new? And if it is, then why would you write out more
If it's what?
Like to do except instead of only.
I can do except here, but it was like as I'm like asking in lecture, it makes more sense to like list the ones that are only. Even though if I put except, I would put 3 in here. Right? So it is technically less code, but let me ask you a serious question. All right? Which one reads better? Hey, I want to call this before action, except
That one.
index, new, and maybe something else, right? You're kind of like, okay. And then in your mind, you'll have to do, all right, so then that means I'm putting it only in these, which is like not as readable and not as easy to understand. Here, when I do the only, it's like, okay, great, I'm calling this only for these. There's a very direct connection to what is happening and how my code reads. So you are technically correct in the way that it will work, but code, again, is designed to be human readable. Right? It's because I want my code to scale, and I want somebody to look at my code and immediately start contributing. If I start doing except because I save myself, 10 keystrokes, you're not doing anyone any favors. Unless you're Laura, where you type 100 words per minute, then you just 120.
Laura.
Then yes, then you could do that. All right, cool. So I don't need anything in show right now. Do I need anything new? Yes, I need the empty variable, right? At coffee equals to coffee.new. Cool. And remember, I can name the instance variables wherever I want because that's how they're going to come through on the view. So what about create?
Yeah, is it cafe or coffee?
Yeah. I'm confused.
Oh, you're right. You're right. It is cafe.
And
See,
that would be-
based on the model. Right? Man, we got in all sorts of trouble on this one.
Yes.
Do you want me to start over, or is this cool?
Fine.
It's cool? I don't hear any buzzing. No. All right. You want me to start over? You want me to start over? Oh, you're good? All right. Good deal. Charge. All right. Anything for create?
Why aren't the instance variables K to K?
Because the instance variables is something that I can control. If I wanted to, I can put all those coffees dough. And then all those coffees dough will come up across on the view. Right? Because I'm just making the instance variable. Something that I understand what's passing through. But the model, I'm at the mercy of what Active Record and Rails built. Cool?
Can you override that?
Huh?
When we're making, when we're doing our like resource.
You can overwrite what Rails will do. And so simply, what I'm trying to do is Rails overwrite, the pluralize. And in here, how do I override the Rails naming conventions? Let's just take a quick dive. In here, there's something called active support inflector, right? What the inflections do. So I can say that instead of like for clothing, I want it to be clothes. So for like human, I want it to be humans and not hymen or whatever it wound up being, right? Like it just like pluralize. I'm in so much trouble. Yeah, you can override it, right? Just look at the documentation and you can just tell it what to do. If I put in coffees, I'm just gonna get coffee, right? Cool, so in my create, for now, I just want to throw a bybug because I'm gonna test this. I'm gonna show you these validations for right now. And then anything for edit? Do we need anything for edit? Okay, what about update? What does update need? Which one? Coffee equals what? Cafe.update?
Coffee programs, bananas.
You sure? I would do.
Yeah.
I would update the singular item. If I call it on the model, everything gets updated, right? And that's not the right way we want to do it. Cool? But yeah, I said that it would be tricky, right? Because like it's kind of like what you want to do. You want to follow this pattern, but get out of this pattern matching thing and start understanding what you're writing for the code. So here it would just be yep. I'm sorry, coffee params, right? Coffee params. And then all I'm going to do at the bottom is I'm going to make it. And I know I'm coming back as params, and I'm requiring which ones? Is it coffee or cafe? We don't know yet, right? We don't know yet. Actually, this is a really good example of why we want to see what comes up. So let's not do anything for these routes yet, because we don't know how the param is going to come across. And when that happens, the best thing to do is let's jump in the code and see what spits out. Cool? I'm not going to build the index. I'm not going to build the view for like index and show. Right now, it's sort of like irrelevant. Right? Is that something you feel like you could do? Okay, cool. Sweet. So what we will build is the new, because we kind of want to see what those params come across as. Right? So let's take a look at this view. New cave / coffee. I think we could do like this. Oh yeah, give me that. We want the umlaut. Oh yeah, yeah. There we go. Cool. If you hold down certain letters, like this like little thing comes up, right? So whenever I talk to Andrew, I'm always like, let's go to lunch, but not just regular lunch. I want to go to lunch. All right. So what form should we be using here?
Form 4.
Why form 4? Because it's going to build the nested hash, right? Did you get that, or? Okay. Nice. And this is going to be for the coffee object. Because if we look at the, God damn, this controller, right? I have coffee here, right? Which is the empty object. So again, coffee is just being passed through. Yeah? So I want to jump into something, right? And that is, what's my schema here? Sweet. See how like I can start breaking up my IDE into things where like I need to be able to see things. Start getting into the habit of breaking this up so that you don't have to jump between files. You can see everything like all in this like one easy to view place. And you could split it as many times as you want. You click it, you drag it, and it'll kind of show you where it's going. The more of these that you have open, the more information you can see all at once, and you can see how things start to connect. Right? Like I show you this not because of anything except it's just easier to write the code, which is why eventually you'll build Megadesk at your office. You'll have 2 monitors. You'll have like all these terminals open, and then you'll have the browser here, and then people walk by and look like you're like a hacker, you know, like, you know? Except now you understand why all those things are open, because it's just you need the information from different files as your app uses more files to talk to each other to build out like all your features. Is that cool? So the first thing is going to be name. What else we got? Oops. Price. Okay. What else? Cafe. Right? So here we have price, right? Just before I get blasted, it's a number field. And then what's this? It's a Boolean. Right? What would make sense as like a Boolean here? Would I use a radio button? Radio is more like selecting one of these options, right? I feel like the checkbox for those that said it is kind of like whether it's like there or not there. Just kind of more Boolean-like, right? I like that word, right? Cool? Yeah? Kind of cool. It's a checkbox. I think it's a checkbox field, but we'll find out. And then before I forget and mess up, I need this submit button. Sweet. So let's take a look. Boop, boop, boop. Let's go to localhost. And how do I get there? Huh? Is it caves? Right. How would I know it's caves? Okay, great. Yes, it's in my routes, right? I was literally just going to be like, you can check the model or you can check the routes. I forgot that I'm on the routes. Great. /new. How useful. Thanks, routes. I said thanks routes.
That's bybug.
Bybug should be in create, not new. Oh, it didn't like checkbox field. That's what it was. Is it checkbox like this? Did you mean checkbox? Sure. Oh, Rails. Oh, Rails. You're so money. You're so money. Did you see that? That was so helpful. Nice. You're learning. So here we just want to see what comes across as the params because we want to understand how that nested thing is working and what Rails is building. I can tell you right now, remember the form, right? What comes across as the key and what comes across as the value, right? In the params hash, if you remember, in our form, this input is what comes across as the key in my params. So it looks like it's going to do cafe name, right? And what's the value that comes across as the params? Whatever the user actually submits, right? So this will be the value for this key of a cafe hash with the name as like the first key in that cafe hash. Cool? Great. So now that I know this information, I can probably update my code, but let's go in further, right? So what do you want to have here? What's your first coffee? Orange, mocha,
Frappuccino.
oh, frappuccino?
Did you never see Zoolander?
And how much is this thing? Wow, you go Starbucks a lot, or? All right, so wait, let's see what comes across as this. Who knows what comes across as this checkbox? What the params are?
0, 1.
It says 0 or 1, right? Which is pretty interesting. So let's check it and see what's going on. If I hit create cafe, I'm going to hit that bybug in my create, right? So, boop, boop, boop. And here I am, as promised. Shouldn't have got rid of it, but I'm in the bybug, right? Check the params hash, and I see this orange mac frappuccino, right? $7. Cafe points to 1. If I did not check it, naturally you would assume it would come out as what? 0. So if something is a Boolean, Rails will understand not just true and false, but also 0 and 1, which makes sense, right? Like it's like a binary understanding machine, like 0 false, 1 true. Cool? So don't be like confused or scared. Okay? Not that like that's scary at all. I've never been like, ooh, 0, and just like freaked out. But either way, now I can do what? Coffee.new. Just kidding. Is it? Oh, it's cafe. All right, I just want to like not lose my brain. So I can create with what? Well, I want these strong params, right? So I can just do this. Interesting. It just completely committed that transaction. But yet everything in here is nil. Is that a good experience? What do you think is going to come up on my index? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Which is like not great at all, right? So what about if I were to do something and then I would just put price is equal to params at a key of cafe at a subkey of price. Can I make this? Definitely. But do you remember in the index, I usually just do @coffees.each do, and I just put coffee.name. If the name is coming up as nil, but there's like a price in there, let's just say there was also cafe in there, and it was like Boolean true. Will I ever see it in the index? I'll never see it in the index because the name is coming up as nil. So when it's iterating through, and I'm like, oh my God, it's in there, it's in the database. How come it's not coming up on index? It's one of those like common gotchas when you don't have good data in your database. Does that make sense? Cool. Awesome. So that being said, I probably want to validate the data that's coming in. I want to make sure that I can't create these like empty objects, and I want to prevent if something is like there's an empty string. I'm like, hey, you know what? In the same way that when you sign up for Bookface or Twitter or Instagram, can you just make a user, just put in a password and just like, great, got it. It's gonna say what? Hey, your username should be at least like 3 characters or something. Give me something. Come on now, right? Or your password's too weak, right? Like sometimes I like make a new account on like Instagram all the time, and I'm like, hey, my username's Wangtron, and my password's name's Evans, and it's like, sorry, Evans is too weak, and I was like, that's embarrassing. But yeah, your password sucks, right? You probably need a capitalized letter, you need like some sort of symbol, you need 4 numbers, and you have to change it every 3 months. You're like, right? These are called validations, right? So let's add some of these validations. How can we do that? Where would I want to make the validation for this cafe object? Should I put it in the view? Should I put it in the controller? Or should I put it in the model? The model. So let's do it. Now the model's finally, it's been a long time, getting some action, right? Usually it's just like it has many belongs to, and you just leave it alone. You're like, done. If I don't know how to do this, what would you Google to look up this Rails model validations? What would you look up? All right, it's like a parroting in here. No, but that's exactly it, right? So whenever we were in mod 1 and mod 2, eventually mod 3, 4, and 5, where there's like less hand-holding, it's like, hey, get these concepts, right? I'm just gonna throw a lot at you. If you don't understand, ask questions or Google. In the beginning, in mod 1, when we're like, hey, just Google it, you're kind of like, I don't even know what to Google. Like, I kind of understand, but like that's sort of like the pattern, right? Either the language or the framework, and then what is it that you are trying to do? And that kind of like should help out, right? Here I know it's just validates. Oops, if I can spell it right. It validates, right? And what does validates take? Have you all gotten to this part of the lab yet? So what does validates take? What is name here? It lines up with the attributes of my model. So I'm validating name. Great. What do I want to validate about it? If it actually exists, right? Presence. It's like true like this? I think so. Cool. So if this is the case, then I can probably continue my bybug. I can go back to caves new. And if I try creating something, right? Let's just make this 10, cafe, check. If I, back in my bybug, if I were to do cafe with this, what should I get? I should get the rollback. Cool. Remember I showed you something like this? C. Oh, dang it. Cool. What is the underscore again? It's like the last one that just happened, right? Rails doesn't like that. Whatever. C equals 2. I love iTerm. You can just do this. Cool. Great. Rollback. I can always find out what went wrong and what would I want to ask it. What would be a method that makes sense? I kind of showed this to you the other day. Errors, right? Like, hey, what? Are there 3 R's in there? Oh, wow. How did you see that? I didn't even, it's like real close to me. All right. I can always ask like, hey, what happened? What are the errors for this? And it's going to give me like this like active model errors thing. And it says something about details, right? Looks like the name, error, blank. Weird. Let me see if I can ask for a more human readable version. And I'll say, hey, you know what? In the errors, I want the full messages. And there it is. This is like a lot easier to decipher than this like active model errors object, right? I could just see, all right, name can't be blank. What a great statement. What type of data structure is this? Is it? It's an array, right? This isn't anything fancy. It's not an active model errors collection object. And I know this because I can just test it. So if this is an array and I had multiple error messages, I could probably do like .each on it and just spit out each one of the error messages that come through, right? So let's do that. Let's finish the rest of the create and then see how we can now get in these errors into the view. So here in the create, we know what? It came off across as cafe. based on the name of the model. So I can do at coffee equals to the cafe dot create with the coffee params. Cool. Now I can finally finish this coffee params. So what am I requiring here? What was the key that came across? Cafe, right? So let's take a look. What were the params? It came across as am I not seeing it somewhere? Oh yeah, here it is. Whoa, sorry. Why does it do what? Yeah, it usually doesn't have this in here. Let's see what this is. It should be nil. I'm sorry. Params and a key of cafe. Interesting. And key of cafe. Huh. This is fine. No, I'm serious. Like, it's just, I think the action controller is just letting you know it's coming from the action controller. It should not affect this like params hash. Yeah, it's fine. It should not affect it at all. Yeah, it's saying specifically that's false, right? So let's fix this, right? Params dot require for the cafe. Cool. And then I want to permit what? The name, price, and cafe. Yeah. Oh, man. I'm out of control. Cool. That worked. And I wrote this inside the by bug first to see I'm seeing this permitted true. So I know for a fact it's working, as opposed to just wildly guessing. So now, okay, that's not what I wanted. I wanted this whole thing. Give me that. Cool. Does that make more sense? Is that cool here? Thanks. Great. We also had something, right? So let's just like finish this off, and we want to what? Redirect somewhere? Where do we want to redirect to? Add coffee? Okay. So just for this to basically work, I'm going to build out that show page so it doesn't like say there's a template error when I test it. So show.erb, and it's just going to be show, and it's just going to be at coffee.name. Oops. Oh, my goodness. My keyboard shortcuts are failing me. What is happening? All right, just the name, right? Cool? Yeah.
Where's the find key method?
It's not there.
The find key method? I never did the find cave in the show.
It doesn't know.
Oh, yeah, you're right. See, this is really good because now you're all so smart, such good Rails developers, and that's just going to be what? Put find cave. It's fine, all right? Dot find with what? The params of ID? Yeah? This is great. You're all better Rails developers than me now, right? No, this is actually really good. Like, as you can start to see how everything is put together, you have more of a mastery over it, and this is awesome. So, cool. All right, anything else wrong with my code before we get started? Good. Now we're going to redirect to add coffee. I'm going to remove this by bug so we can kind of see it all in action and work. Ready? Let's actually make this. Or I spelled orange wrong. Nobody caught this? This is horrible. Oh, and I ignored it? Is there anything else I ignore? Like, you guys are just... You know what? I'm just gonna leave it. It's $10 and it has caffeine in it. Oh, I see why. It's because I'm in the buy bug. Great. Okay, this was now free. Yep. And it's decaf. Great. Boom. The show page works, right? Cool. So, what I want to do now is if for whatever reason this doesn't work, right? I put in because I only have the validation on name, nothing else. If I click create, what should happen? It should make some sort of error message, right? It should just hey, you know what? That name can't be blank. Kind of like what we saw earlier. So if I click create, okay, weird. It just tries to default to go to index. Interesting. Rails has this built-in auto magic where, do you remember in Sinatra where it was great, you finished that post? Yeah, and that's it. It's all it did, right? It's just great, you hit the post, and it did not redirect you to anywhere. Rails knows that if you finish some sort of put, patch, or delete or anything like that, it automatically will push you back to index if you don't tell it to redirect somewhere. Is that cool? So let's actually build out this index so it will not break on us. So h1, right? Index, and it'll be very basic. At coffees.each do. C, because I'm not playing this game. And it's going to be end. And I'm just going to put c.name. Cool. Great. The other ones didn't show up, even though I know I have 3 in my database. Because the names were nil. Cool. So let's go back to this new, right? And let's see whether or not this works. If I hit create, it's just going to throw me right back to index. Is that the user experience you want? No, right? So what I can do is I can go back to the caves controller and I could do something like this, right? No problem. When do I get the error messages? Before or after I try to save to my database? After. So it doesn't make sense to try putting the errors over here. It only makes sense to put it after this create. So I'm going to try creating, and then how would I do this? Talk to me about the logic. What would you want to put in here? After this, I get some sort of rollback, right? What is the thought process here? What's the logic? Oh, y'all thought you just zone out during lecture, huh?
If it doesn't validate, then redirect back to the page and show you a message.
Okay.
Normal page.
Right. That's exactly right. That would be the logic, right? If it doesn't actually save, right? So let's put this in here, right? If does not save to database, I want to redirect to what? This new page, the new page to try again. Otherwise, if successful, then what? Oh man. Otherwise, if saved, right? Then redirect to show. It doesn't really matter which one comes first or which one comes second. It's if it's good, go to the show. If it's bad, go to what? The new form again, right? So here, what would you prefer? Do you prefer if it's good first or if it's bad first? If it's good first, right? That's usually how the logic goes. So if it's saved, right, go to the show. Otherwise, if it does not save, redirect to try again. Cool? Now that we've fully established the pseudocode, is it easier to write right now? Cool. So how can we check to see if something was saved to the database?
Check if it validates.
Hmm?
Check if it validates.
Absolutely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop a buy bug in here. Cool. And then I'm going to try to make something again. So I'm going to drop this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to create. All right. So now I'm here. can I do, I'm just going to copy this, I'm lazy. This. Rollback, right? Now I have this sort of error message. Hold on. Because I don't want to type that thing the whole time. Right? I have some sort of errors. I can also see if it saved. I'm sorry, not saved. Save is like when you actually try to save it to the database. What did you say the word was? Valid. Is it valid? False, right? I can also check to see if it was, what do we say when something actually makes it into the database? Persisted, right? Did this persist into my database? So you can use valid or persisted in this case, right? Whichever one makes more sense to you. Are there any questions on how I was able to just check that? Great, thank you. Oh man, lecture is now like a game show. So if it's valid or if it's persisted, that's great. So it returns as Boolean, right? So easily I can check to see what? If at coffee dot valid, then I can do redirect to coffee. Else, and that's what this is, right? Else what? Do you want to render new or redirect to new?
Render.
I'm gonna touch it. I'm gonna get into it. Who says render? Who says redirect? Okay. The rest of you say nothing. It's fine. I'll use render for now. Cool. And how do I write this again? Just haven't written in a while. New, right? Pretty. Yeah, right? It's like, see what happens when you don't write it for a while? You forget. So don't be like, yo, Evans doesn't know anything. Which is also true, but it's not important. Cool. Did everyone understand how I was able to make this just using logic, right? I asked you like, hey, what should we do here? The pseudocode totally made sense. You kind of understood what was happening here. You could easily Google this, right? Like, hey, in my Rails, how can I check to see if something passed the validations? I guarantee you one of the first things that come up would be like .valid or .persisted. And then now you would use that in your code. In lecture, I'm just trying to move it along, but that's basically what you would do at your seats, right? You're presented with a problem. You know kind of what to Google. You'll see it. You'll integrate it into your code because you have good like logic. Don't just throw things at the wall. All right? So let's see if it'll work now. I'm going to get rid of this by bug. And all I'm going to do is refresh. I'm still, okay. And then here, if I type in nothing and I create, what should happen? It does not pass the validations, right? It's not going to pass the validations. It's not going to hit this. This will come back as false, and then it will render new again. So, great. It resized because my browser resized. It wasn't like anything weird with Rails. Cool. So if I keep hitting this, I could see on the bottom here that it is in fact refreshing, but I'm not getting any of my error messages. So how would I be able to get my error messages? From my controller, my add coffee now has something called errors, right? From my controller, how would I pass something to the view? How would I pass my errors to the view? Remember, the instance variable, right, gets passed to the view from the controller. So what would you want to name this thing? Errors, right? I can't spell that. That's terrible. Equals to, how did I get those error messages again? Let's take a look here. Ah, dang it. I lost it. Yeah, right? I had it. Oh, man. I just refreshed it too many times like a clown. Add coffee, right? Dot errors. Because that's what I did, right? I did like c.errors, which was basically add coffee. right? And then I ask for its full messages. Any questions on just this? So now, yes?
Can you just elaborate on full messages? That's a built-in.
Yes. So dot errors, right, is a built-in functionality with active model. And then dot full messages is a method within active model, the validations, that just turns all the error messages into an array object. So this is a built-in functionality through active model, right? I didn't write this anywhere. I didn't define it anywhere. Rails is magic. Cool? Great. So now in my render new, what do I have access to? Perfect. So let's take a look. In my new, I have something called @errors. So can I do something like @errors.each do with the individual error? This is HTML. It's Ruby. What?
But you don't want to.
It looked like a Ruby, right? Very good. Man, I have to try to make your blogs. I can see I'm getting made fun of. And I need to be there to defend my honor. Error. Do I need to do like error.name or anything? Why? It's just an array of strings if you remember it, right? So I can just literally put error because that's like just the string. So cool. Who says this will work? Interesting that you say that.
No, you didn't put anything in the.
Why?
Because instead of dot, you have to. Oh.
Okay, great. Sorry, just not that. That wasn't what I was going for, but good job. 10 points to Gryffindor, right? 10 points to Gryffindor? Okay, maybe I'm the only one that saw those really famous movies that were like 8 of them for some reason, because they were like not popular. Why would this not work? Yes. Think about it, right? The first time I hit this page, it's going to do, hey, this H1 is like a new cave coffee. @errors.each. What is @errors here the first time I load this new form? It's not just nothing. It's nil. Can I call .each on a nil object? No. It will say undefined method .each for nil class. Sound familiar? Yeah? Yeah, mod 1 stuff, right? Which is why whenever we teach you a framework, it's like, yes, I have to learn how the framework works, but at the same time, if I'm not good at Ruby, I won't be able to make it work. So, given that, how do I get around this? First thing I want to do is I want to check to see if the errors even exist, right? So, if @errors. Do I have to do something like exists or like .length equals greater than 0? I could just leave it, right? Because it will have a truthy value, right? So if it's nil, it'll come up as false. Completely skip over this whole thing. If it comes back as an array of 1, 2, 3, 4 items, it will come back as something which we know evaluates to truthy, which evaluates to truish, which means that this will execute, right? So this concept right here is known as nil wrapping. So if you hear someone say nil wrapping, this is what it means, right? Like, I want to be able to do something, but first I have to check to see if it's there. Cool? Good catch, by the way, on both of you, right? My bad syntax and like the actual thing I wanted to get done. So, cool. Oops. Let's go to new, right? 9. Great. What is going on here? Why is it not coming up? What do you mean by render, and what do you think is happening? Well, what we can do is, yeah?
You can put in the layout page.
It's not passing through the errors to actually put
Let's find out. Ready? Did you know you can actually do this? Oh, just kidding. Gosh. Just kidding. I want to do all of this. I wanted to pause there. Maybe this one. There we go. Okay. If you put the equals, it'll jump into like the Rails backend and like all the code for Bybug. If you do not put the equals, it'll actually pause your code in the middle of this template rendering. Cool? So you can like jump the Bybug in both the controller and the view. Kind of cool. So, what do I want to check? It's nil, right? So what I really want to do is continue, let this page load, and I want to create this cafe, right? I'm going to pause back in the code because remember, it's just re-rendering. What is at errors? Still nil. What's going on? Something is not coming across. So I can figure out that at errors is not working from my controller. It's not being passed through successfully. Does that make sense? So, great. Now that I know that, I'm going to get rid of this Bybug. And I'm going to check to see what is happening in my code here in the controller. So where would I want to test it and where do I want to do this? Where do I want to drop this Bybug? In the else? Or what? Probably right here. Because I can't tell, well, I know it's actually going to this. Right? But what I want to do is I want to run this, and then I want to run this. And I kind of want to see what's coming through. So, does everyone understand like why I'm pausing it there? Awesome. It's kind of quiet, but it's fine. Nice. Cool. So if I hit Create Cafe, I'm going to hit this Bybug. And now I have add coffee. Is add coffee valid? False. Right? So far so good? So what is at coffee.errors? Dot full messages. Name can't be blank. So in my render new, what's going on? It's not passing through correctly. Now I'm actually confused. This should be passing in right here. Should be rendering. I'm looking for like typos right now.
It's like calling copy dot. I think you only get the error after you call copy dot valid. Does it still pass that through the equals?
Wouldn't it have to be like if at errors.errors.any?
I think I've seen it as like copy equals copy dot new, and then you check valid, and then you save it. Yeah. Instead of copy dot create.
No, the
Maybe this is so different.
this should run.
You did it, yeah. Then dot new, and then you save if valid.
Yeah.
I think that's what.
So you want to check the instance that you want to make a new instance and then check if that's valid.
Here?
No, you're
Yeah,
just
I
doing
think
instead
it's
of
like
cafe
that
dot
coffee.
create, cafe dot new.
So 18 should be cafe dot new, and then you do a dot save on.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see. This should be persisted.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Persist is different. No, it's fine. This should work. Valid, so .new, this will run the validations anyway, right? It does new and save. Check to see if it's valid. Otherwise, at errors, render new. New should have at errors on this reload. Let's try redirect. That should not work though. Redirect's not going to work, and I'll explain that later.
If you click the buy button else, I guess you can see if coffee.errors is still available there.
It should, but did you hear that? It's the noise I always make. That's where I got it from. Cool. It doesn't like that. So put 1. Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't run this line of code yet. Yeah, it's right there. And render new, hits new. Yo, let's take a 2-minute break. I'm gonna jump into this. You figured it out. What was happening was I literally was not printing anything. I didn't do like this little puts action or print for P. You can also wrap it inside HTML tags, and that will actually display. Usually what you'll see is because I'm doing a dot each and I'm iterating over something, in production what you'll see is like this unordered list, and then you'll close it out. And then what winds up happening is these just become li tags. Right? Because I'm going through an unordered list. For each of the errors, I'm making an li tag, and I'm adding the error in it. And that's like what happens in production. I was just trying to show you something. I didn't realize that you have to like put it to the console. So everything that we were doing in terms of like having the errors, digging into the code, and seeing if render new was getting it, and then dropping the buy bug here, seeing that errors was in fact an array that was coming through. This wasn't printing because I just didn't explicitly tell it to print. If I put it inside a tag, it will just recognize what to put between the tags, and then it will display. Cool? Cool. All right, so let's take a look at all of that in action. Ready? So name is blank, 7. If I create cafe, it will probably hit the buy bug. Cool. And it'll come back and say name can't be blank. All right, because the errors is coming through into the new, and then going in here, I'm iterating through, I'm making an li tag, and I'm printing the error. Are there any questions on this so far? Sweet. Here is what winds up happening, and I want you to pay attention very closely to this URL. Where does this form submit to? It submits to /caves, if you remember. I think it's like here. This form will go to /caves, right? So the URL will change to /caves, right? So if I were to do something like this, and I were to create the cafe, create the coffee, it's going to see that it's invalid. It's not going to do this, right? This should actually be here. Oops. Boop, boop, boop. Right? It's going to make this @errors instance variable with the full messages of the coffee, and it's going to render new. Because the form submits and then I render, remember what happens in the response cycle, right? The form will submit. It will go to this path, this create path, which is a post to /caves. Create happens, the URL changes, and then the response is render new. So that whole thing in Create Cafe, watch the URL. Okay. Just bear with me. Watch the URL. It changes to /caves because of the way the form posts. Does that make sense? So let me get rid of this buy bug, which I did. Oh, I didn't save. Embarrassing. One more time. Ready? So price is fine, cafe is fine, but the name is not. I'm going to hit Create Cafe. Pay attention to here and the URL, and you will see. Ready? I'll explain what's happening. When I hit Create Cafe, it goes to /caves. So let's take a look at what's happening under the hood. First, I did a get to /new, and I got the form, right? And it rendered new. That was good to go, status 200. I submitted the form and did a post to /caves, right? Then the params came across. It tried to save it. Because of my validations, it blocked it. And then I told it to render cave/new. That's exactly what I said the response should be, right? Status 200. I successfully sent back the response. Everything was good to go. Expected behavior. The problem is, if the user is on here and I see this name can't be blank, what happens when I click refresh? It's going to go to /caves, which is the index. Is that a good user experience? No, when I refresh on my form, I should just see the form again. So how can I get it to do that? I should not be rendering new. I should be redirecting to new, because that way the URL will match the route that I passed it. So redirect to where? The new, I think it's like cafe path, right? We can always check the, or cave path? I think it's cave path, right? Yeah, I know, it's out of control. Out of control. This is honestly the worst luck I've ever had in an entire mod. That being said, you're learning a lot about Rails. And the nuance is, if I do this, all right, and I create cafe, what will happen now? This redirect action, right? Let's take a look at the terminal. Oh, it is, did you mean new cafe path? Rails is so helpful. It is really intuitive. It's really helpful, and it's also trash sometimes. So, cool. Let's watch this terminal, right? Watch the URL, watch the terminal. Cool. Same URL, right? I'm not going to refresh yet because I want to take a look at the terminal real quick. I did this. I did my get to new, right? And it rendered like I said it would. I posted to caves. It tried sending these params in. It blocked it. And then it did a redirect to cave/new. Exactly what I said, which in fact is what type of status? 300. Do you remember like the HTTP statuses? 300 is a redirect. So now you can all see it kind of coming together now, right? And that redirect to the new is a new GET request to /new. If it's a new GET request to /new, if we look inside our code, okay. Yeah, we'll just cover that up, right? If it's a new GET request to /new, what is @coffee? It's the new instance. It no longer knows about this old instance, because when I did the new, it said, great, @coffee is cafe.new, and then it rendered new. It literally did this. All right, and you can see it. Get to new, rendered the new. And I mentioned a few lectures ago and several times that each of these requests are stateless. They do not know about the instance variable from before. Does that make sense? Like you lost that instance variable because each request runs through the method, then does the render. Runs through the method, does the redirect. The redirect will reread the instances here, touch the model, send the response. In its own sort of scope, right? It doesn't know about the previous ones. If that is the case, when I redirect to new cafe path, do I see anything in here about @errors? No, I don't. Therefore, will the error messages come out? No, they won't. So let's see what happens. Ready? I go to new with a quick refresh, right? Which is just this get. Then I do something like 8675309. If I hit create cafe, it will redirect me, but my error messages don't come up because it doesn't know about it. If you were to try to fix it, right, what would be the thing that you want, right? Conceptually, what is it that you want? If these requests are stateless, right, and I know that my errors were in my last state, if you can like build your own magic, what would you want? I want to pass that state in. For how many requests though? Just one, right? Flash hash was born. There is this concept in Rails called Flash, where I can pass in something into my next request for only one extra request. And Flash hash is just a hash. That's all it is. So we can see it if we were to go into, oh man, that thing, great, sorry. It's gone. Right? If we were to go into this by bug, right? Remember, I'm in the else, right? So I want to make sure that it actually breaks. Cool. So now I'm in the params, right? I'm in this else, right? I could check flash. Action dispatch, it just says flash hash, right? In the same way, flash is just a hash. I can just add an extra key of like custom name, right? And I can point it to be cool, right? So now when I check flash, right, I have something called custom name cool. And it lasts one extra request. Can I probably do something like flash error or errors? And I can pass in the errors I want to pass in, right? That's probably like the logic here. So let's do it. Here, instead of at errors, which we know goes directly into the view, right? What do I want instead? I want flash. Flash is just a regular hash, so I'm just going to put a key of errors, and I'm going to get this. If that's the case, right, I can get rid of this now, right? I can also get rid of this gains project I built. It's not a cool project. Let's take a look at the new. Is it now errors? What is it? And here it's just, that's really the main change, right? So let's take a look at the terminal, and let's take a refresh here, and do an 8, and create the cafe. I'm in this by bug. Oh wait, this is not the right one I want. Wait, oh, did I not save it? Oh my god, embarrassing. Cool, sweet. Okay, one, that's weird. Now I'm in this like flash, right? So when it redirects to the new cafe path, it will continue. And there it is, right on the other side. And to prove that it lasts one request, if I refresh, is that a new request? That would mean that flash is gone and the errors are gone. So check it out, this get, right, had that flash, but this get does not. So the flash hash allows you to pass in some knowledge and data for one extra request. Are there any questions on that? That was kind of like complicated, so I'm like either looking for like a thumbs up, a nod, or the buzzers. Questions, yes?
Can you show how that works just in like the network tab? So that would it come through the requests on like in Chrome if you're doing posts?
The network?
On the console?
Oh yeah, I'll show you. I'll show you. it passes through the headers, but I'll get to more of that next week. So here's what's happening. Yes, your question.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned earlier, but like the only thing that we're missing from rendering and redirecting instead is that the values that we're inputting don't get carried over when it fails. Is there a way to do that?
Yes, there is. That's not, we'll talk offline about that because it's a little bit more complicated. Cool. Yeah.
When you do flash brackets, would you be able to do add errors, or is it always going to be colon errors?
Brackets. So, what do you mean?
Yeah, so flash, when you do brackets, colon errors,
Yeah.
would you be able to refer to as add errors if you wanted to, or does it always have to be colon?
Does it always have to be? Oh, you're talking about like this? Would this make sense to you as a key? Okay. This is just a regular hash, right? I can just do whatever I want. I can make this a string if I wanted to.
Oh,
I just use symbols because
this refers to that.
it's symbols like read faster in the way like data structures work in like computer science world.
Well, if it's only goes like one more request, how is this gonna be a good user for the thing? Because people can just be like refresh. They won't be getting the same message even if they.
You only want that message to come one time, right?
Yeah, but like when also when they have to fill the form again. I like okay, I think I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
My job here is done. Seen like that? I told you guys about this, like tuxedo mask. And sometimes I get a bunch of questions and they're like, wait, and then you like solve it yourself, and I'm like, yes. Cool. So I will show you exactly what's happening, right? Again, I have the ability to drop this by bug here. So let me do that. I'm gonna drop in some like nonsense, hit create cafe. I'm gonna hit the first by bug in the else, right? And then here flash is being established. When I continue, I pause at the second by bug, right? If we look real quick, right here, I submitted the form, right? It hits the create, and then it does a redirect. That redirect does a get to new, which again, like I said, is a new request, does not have access to the old states. But because I used flash, flash passed through, and it has something called errors. Errors cannot be blank. Name cannot be blank, because I passed that in through my controller right here. Oops. I pass it in right here. So flash is coming across on the other side in my browser. And then if I were to continue, it will display properly. Yeah? So flash can also get sent in, right? I talked about instance variables being passed in. Flash can also get passed in. There's two questions. Ali first and then.
Try to word this. So let's say you a couple of times in a row don't put a name. So the instance you're trying to create is not valid. The errors array, won't that be getting filled up with name can't be blank, name can't be blank? Is that
I know what you're saying, but flash only persists for one. So the question is, right, every time, will this flash errors hash grow out of control every time I run into this error, right? Notice how I am not pushing. I'm simply assigning. So every time it hits it, it gets reassigned. When it hits it, it gets reassigned. So it doesn't really grow. I mutate the data, and I reassign it.
So if you put in, let's say you did 2 invalid tries, and then you did a valid one, you wouldn't then see an error.
Well, so you're saying 2 invalid tries, right? So on the first one, my name is blank, right? I go in, is this valid? No. It's gonna hit this by bug. I'm gonna assign the flash hash as name can't be blank. redirect, and you're going to see it again with the form. You're going to try resubmitting again, right? Silly you. Name is blank again. You're going to hit valid, false. Same error message is being reassigned. It's getting redirected. You finally learn, and now you're putting a name like Cool. Welcome to downtown Coolsville, right? It gets created. It is valid. It actually saves to the database, and then you go to the show page, and that's it. And when you do go to the show page, notice there was no flash in here. And because of that extra request, when it redirects to coffee, it's a new GET request to the show. Even if flash error messages were there, they're gone because they'd only last one request. So the flash is reset to nil. Good question. Yes, sir. And I'll get to you.
Would you still have to print the errors in the li tags when you're using flash hash? Like the error that you were getting before not being any li tags?
No, again, it's just an array. So
No,
it's
but
going
You
to...
were getting the error before without the li tags, right?
Yeah, I'd have to... If without the li tags, I'll have to force the print. Cool. Good question. That was a weird one. Yes.
So if you want two values missing, would that flash errors be two separate strings?
It would be an array of two strings, so let's get to that. Cool? Are there any questions on this so far? All right, great. So let's do that, right? Let's just say, for whatever reason, the price, you're running like a really cool shop, and you're like, you know what? Coffee cannot be more than $5 for whatever reason, right? Now I want to validate what? Price. With what? Max? Like, how would I kind of write this, right? Like, now it's tricky. Now it's not just presence true. Let's see if we've learned anything from our friend Jugal, right? What do I want to do? First, like, this is the framework, right? I'm working on Rails. I'll just type it here for fun.
Do numericality.
Yes. Yes. Validations. Oh, it just defaulted me up there. But for what? I want some sort of like number, right? I want to validate a number now. And I don't want it necessarily validating as just, is it there? So I'm validating some sort of like number. Okay, cool. I check out this validations. And I'm looking through all of these validations, and I'm kind of looking at it, and I'm like, acceptance, no. Confirmation, probably not. Exclusion format, length, maybe. This looks like what I'm looking for, some sort of like number, like a numericality. So if I click it, validates the attribute numericality true, which probably is saying it has to be a number, right? Like, I don't want to put in like A for price. I want like a number. But I also have this ability to put in numericality, and it takes in an object, only integer. Besides only integer, this helper also accepts the following actions, right? Options. Let's see, equal to, less than or equal to. Which one do we want to use here? Okay, good. Yeah, I like left it highlighted, right? Less than or equal to. Okay, cool. Looks like I need this line of code here. So let's find out. I have something like this, but I don't want only integer. I want less than or equal to. Cool. I want less than or equal to. And what do we want this to be? Less than or equal to true? Probably 5, all right? Because we want to run that discount cafe. Interesting. Without changing any of the other flashes, right, I want to see what error messages come up. So let's do it. If I go back to my application and I refresh, I'm in the buy bugs. Let me get rid of the buy bugs. Bloop, bloop, and bloop, bloop, bloop. Now I know why you make fun of me. Let's continue. Cool. Let's just hit a couple of refreshes to make sure. And let's just say the price was $1 million, right? And we'll also leave this blank just to see if both will run. And there it is. No. Yeah? And that's really it. And then per flash, they will disappear. On this new get request when I refresh. The last thing I want to show you today is, well, there's two things I want to show you, is something called Validates. I know there was a lab that was particularly annoying, and it's about like custom validations, right? So what if I wanted something on this Validates page? I'm going to literally search the page for custom. Cool, cool. Just keep going. Nope. Performing custom validations, as if that title could not be more clear, right? Custom validators. This looks like something that you did inside the lab, right? And this is kind of what's happening in the background. If I continue, I can build these custom methods, right? Let's take a look. Custom methods, right? Looks like I have a validate, not validates, right? Which is the built-in one. And then it passes in some really long string, something like expiration date cannot be in the past, and also discount cannot be greater than or equal to the total value. Interesting. Where are those coming from? Right here. I'm defining a method called expiration date cannot be in the past. I'm calling it right here. Same with this, and I'm calling it right here. What do these methods do? If, right, and it looks like this is some sort of attribute of the model, and I want to check something. If that runs back as false, I'm going to add these errors. Right? That's basically what I'm looking at here. Nothing that like I knew from like the top of my head off memory. I'm just like looking at it and trying to understand the code. Is that something you could have probably just looked at and assumed? Maybe? Let's test it. Let's figure it out. Let's make this work. First I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this like a champ. All right? But I'm going to copy it specifically so I can try to make it work for me. Right here, right? We don't want this second one because I didn't bring it in. And what do we want to validate? Probably if the CAFE is good, right? If it's like decaf. I just go to 12 unless someone else has a room. Oh, my bad. All right, I'm gonna wrap up in 2 minutes. My bad, dude. We'll have a method called like caffeine. Cool. Sweet. And I'm just gonna name this caffeine, right? Because I'm just calling it here. So if, what is this? What is the attribute right here? CAFE is what? Is it present? It's a Boolean, right? Does this double equals what? True. Right? So, man, this is going to block it. That's okay. I'm going to add what? To the attribute CAFE. All right? Must have caffeine. All right? Or we'll just block it. For whatever reason, your store only sells caffeinated drinks. Cool? Let's find out. I think it might be backwards, but it's backwards, right? We'll just check, we'll test it. Here, ready? If I just create, okay, yeah, it's backwards. If CAFE does not equal, right, like this. Cool. All right, and that's just how I did the custom validations. So for all of you that were like really stuck on that lab, like, oh, these custom validations are tough, they're not, you know? Are there any questions on like validations, custom validations, how I can pass in error messages into my view, and what the flash hash is? Great, thanks for your time today.